Imagine for a moment a very cold winter, and a group of porcupines are left exposed to the cold weather. To fend off the cold, these porcupines decide to huddle close together. Once they get near each other, though, their spines painfully poke and stab one another, which forces them apart. But once again, feeling the harsh weather, they need to huddle for warmth. They repeat the process of pain from their spines and from the cold winter over and over. This parable, which was first imagined by the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer and the Chad himself, Sigmund Freud, is widely known as the hedgehog's dilemma. It's a dilemma that serves to explain the problem with human intimacy. So much like the hedgehogs, people's good intentions for a close relationship will ultimately lead to pain and mutual self-harm. One's desire for a feeling of warmth and connection with another person will lead to pain. A response to this could be to wall yourself away, to not even take a chance with emotional pain, but Schopenhauer even admits that isolating yourself is not the solution. It's a choice that'll just lead to further harm and distress. So ultimately, we pull away until it's no longer a choice, and when our desire for intimacy returns, we are pulled back, only to be hurt by those we care most about. What was I talking about again? I'm supposed to be talking about anime. Anime? Neon Genesis Evangelion is a pretty great show. Everyone's heard of it, everyone loves it, it's good. It's the type of show that once you finish watching, will sit with you for a while and will randomly pop up in the most inopportune moments. Evangelion poses a lot of questions about our main character Shinji as he navigates his life as a young teenage boy, while fighting on behalf of the human race. For better or for worse, Evangelion polarized its fan base by sticking with Shinji through to the bitter end of its finale. The abstract final episodes of Evangelion neatly wrap up Shinji's story, but left everybody else kind of on the cutting room floor. Be it budget constraints that led to the decision to strip back animation quality, it does provide for a thought-provoking, optimistic finish that nobody enjoyed. A few death threats later, Hideaki Anno said, and gave fans an ending, a very definitive one that flips the tone of the previous entirely, presenting a very depressing look at the characters from the original. But what separates Evangelion from other shows is its heavy themes about human connection, self-identity, and the meaning of it all. For every action-packed angel fight, we get a bunch of quiet moments between the cast that explore these ideas. And this is a strength of the show, how it is able to balance these two sides of the same coin flawlessly up until the end where things get a bit weird. Anno made a mech show so good that it left a giant impression on a lot of people and future media to come. When I finished watching the show on Netflix, I was curious about what the anime community...
Yeah, I consider myself to be a great weeaboo warrior.
thought about certain episodes. And yeah, the big moments from the show, like the beginning and the end, introjection, and ambivalence were there. But I couldn't help but notice that my favorite episode wasn't at the top of the list and had a 7.6 out of 10.
Damn.
The episode in question has a lot of what I love about Evangelion. It focuses in on Shinji, which is by far the most interesting component of this show. What makes Evangelion an actual deconstruction of the anime mech genre is our super flawed protagonist, who is mentally unfit to play the cliche mech piloting hero. No angel attacks, it's a Shinji-centric episode, baby. Everybody's favorite. It's uncharacteristic for a show of this scale to have an episode this quiet, but it really stands out in my mind and has quickly become one of my favorites. So get a seat, grab some popcorn, let's talk about Neon Genesis Evangelion. With every episode dedicated to Shinji, it's pretty safe to say this show is about the exploration of its protagonist. In visual media, character introductions are very significant at establishing certain traits. Spielberg is particularly good at this in his early work, with the introduction of Quint in Jaws. This scene excellently establishes Quint as like a grizzled fisherman, almost as scary and intimidating as the shark itself.
$10,000 for me by myself. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
In Indiana Jones, we see his hand, hat, lasso, all before we see his face. Some films might opt for a different approach by subverting some expectation of the character, like when we see Willy Wonka barely make it down a flight of stairs and then take a minute to walk a couple of feet. In Shinji's case, the first time we see him, he's at a phone booth in an abandoned city. There's a feeling of isolation. He's reaching to somebody with no response. He's physically and emotionally distant from people in the surrounding area. This state of limbo that Shinji exists in is a constant reminder of the separation he feels between himself and other people. So, at the beginning of episode 4, we learn that Shinji has run away from home, and a nearly 3-minute long scene is given to him on a train as the passengers fade in and out. One thing I noticed is that in almost every frame, we see at least 2 passengers together fostering some kind of connection. You've got a child resting on his mother's shoulders, 2 men with umbrellas striking up some sort of conversation, and a schoolgirl laughing and talking. But Shinji is there with his head down, listening to the same song on repeat, escaping to something that gives him comfort until he can no longer hide and the train arrives at its final destination. Shinji eventually arrives at a movie theater, and we see that his eyes are completely dead. Until it's right then that Shinji's eyes light up with life, and then his expression turns into anger. So, what does this mean? Well, for one, Shinji desires some kind of human connection. He's clearly in such an isolated state that when he sees a public display of affection, he's upset by it. Not to an extent that immediately leads to anger, though. It begins as a craving that turns to jealousy and then annoyance. Shinji wants this kind of connection and is angered by what he lacks. And the mere display of affection, a reminder of his own lonesome self, leads to madness. Maybe this is a hint at what's to come. Keep in mind that this was all conveyed in a manner of 2 minutes with 0 dialogue, unless you count the movie that's being played in the background. Another scene is given to expressing Shinji's crippling loneliness as he walks across various locations, once again adding to that state of limbo I was talking about earlier. A flashback scene is also shown between Misato and Shinji where she scolds him for not following orders during the last angel battle. He eventually runs into his classmate Kensuke and they share some dinner.
まったく羨ましいよ。あんな綺麗なお姉さんと一緒に住んでてエヴァンゲリオンを操縦できて、一度でいいから思いのままにエヴァンゲリオンを操ってみたい。
やめた方がいいよ。お母さんが心配するから。
ああ、それなら大丈夫。俺そういうのいないから。怒りと一緒だよ。
Kensuke comes across as somebody who would be the hero in another anime mech show like Amuro Ray from the 1979 Mobile Suit Gundam. He's a young, happy-go-lucky, nerdy teenage boy who perfectly fits the mold of somebody you'd expect to see as the protagonist. But Kensuke isn't, it's Shinji. So the scene between the two is some great commentary about the point of the show and why it works as well as it does. It takes the typical hero which we see in Kensuke and turns him into a Shinji, then uses him to illustrate flaws within human behavior which us, the audience, can learn and reflect upon. So come morning, Nerve Security shows up outside their tent to take him away, and he's dragged back to Misato, where the episode's title really shows its colors. For some context, the relationship between these two characters is at an all-time low here. Shinji has spent the majority of the series living with Misato, and out of all the characters in the show is closest to her. She's also been one of the only people to show any kind of affection towards him. But after being scolded for not following orders, which escalates into more personal attacks, in this episode he has completely pulled away from her and any form of human connection.
大丈夫ですよ。乗りますよ。
乗りたくないの。
そりゃそうでしょ。第一僕には向いてませんよ、そういうの。だけど、綾波や美里さんや律子さん。
いい加減にしなさいよ。人のことなんか関係ないでしょ。嫌ならここから出て行きなさい。エヴァや私たちのことは全部忘れて、元の生活に戻りなさい。あんたみたいな気持ちで乗られんのは迷惑よ。
So Misato deals a hard dose of the truth, and Shinji makes the ultimate decision to leave NERV, leave Tokyo 3, and go back to his normal life. Before Shinji leaves, he's met to his surprise by Toji and Kensuke. They come to wish him goodbye, and Toji asks if Shinji would punch him in the face to make things even from the last episode. I know I've been talking a lot thus far about Shinji sad on train, but I think that this and the ending may be the most important parts of this episode. The sounds of cicadas is an element that returns for this scene. So after Shinji decks Toji in the face and the three just laugh it off as friends, he has a bit of a realization. In this next moment, Toji does something incredibly important.
いずれわしらもこの町から出ていかんならんようなるやろ。せやけど、わしら何も言われへん。エヴァの中で苦しんでる怒りの姿、見てるからな。怒りのことごちゃごちゃ抜かすやつがおってみ。わしがパチキかましたる。
He shows Shinji sympathy. Recall the moment in the theater when Shinji sees these two and his eyes flare to life. The same thing happens here when Toji extends a genuine human connection to somebody who's been starving for it, and it comes from the last person Shinji would expect it from, the person who had caused him actual physical pain. He reaches out to Shinji to show actual concern for his well-being, and it floors him. And so, Anno chooses to play a song very familiar to the one Shinji listened to on the train. Both the audience and Shinji from the song recall the amount of emotional torment he had gone through and the desire he had to close himself off from personal relationships. But in a way, Toji proves to Shinji that he was wrong about running away, thinking that nobody cared about him and that he was alone. Shinji learns that the world he believed he was stuck in was a lie. Despite what he thought, there are still people who care for his well-being. He is not alone. And like a tidal wave of emotion, the feelings of guilt and sorrow flow back to him.
殴られなきゃならないのは僕だ。僕は卑怯で臆病で強くて弱虫で。
Shinji finally opens up and is able to communicate how lost and how blind he was because of Toji's act of kindness. Beautiful writing, great end to his arc in this episode. I love it. Great. Oh wait, I actually forgot to mention one scene after Shinji leaves the movie theater. Just kidding, it was all according to plan. You fell into my trap. Yeah, that was it. You know, on first viewing, it seems a little weird. You're just like, okay, next. But on rewatch, it does come across as something a little more important. This scene had bugged me for a while, no pun intended. The cicadas become so loud that Shinji runs away, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out why until I realized it was literally staring at me in the face. Remember when Shinji was having dinner with Kensuke? Well, during that conversation, Shinji talks about how Misato told him that the ecosystem is rebuilding itself.
生態系が戻ってるって美里さんが言ってた。
Which is why the sounds of cicadas are returning. See, originally I thought the sounds of the cicadas were a cry from nature that reminded Shinji that he needs to pilot his Eva. And since Shinji kind of sucks, he tries to run away from the cries of help because of the emotional and physical strain piloting Eva's has on him. This is a perfectly fine way to interpret it, but eventually slapped me in the face. The pink sky, the cicadas, are both representations of Misato. And what clued me into thinking this? Well, after rewatching it many times and having a tough time deciphering it, I just watched like 5 seconds after and immediately got it. After Shinji runs away, it immediately smash cuts into Misato staring into the screen. And then right afterwards, she calls him a baka. So when Shinji talks about what Misato told him, the cicadas are not only a reminder of her, but a reminder of what she brought to Shinji, human connection. The cicadas become a reminder of both the love and the pain that come with a kind of close relationship with another human being. So to even further prove my point, in this scene after Misato finishes scolding Shinji, we see a shot of him filled with the same pink sky. That's film analysis. The pink sky becomes a visual representation of the hurt Shinji has experienced from being so close to Misato. The cicadas also can be a very twisted reminder to Shinji of the hurt and pain from relationships, but there's a bit more complexity with the cicadas. When Kensuke and Toji say goodbye to Shinji, a moment of genuine friendship and connection between the boys, we hear those cicadas. They are the good and the bad that come from the moments of insecurity you have with the people closest to you. The same way they were a reminder of emotional pain to Shinji, they're also a reminder of support, empathy, and compassion that comes with great friendships. And so we reach our destination, the final scene of the episode. After saying goodbye to the boys, Shinji decides to leave everything behind and go back to his old life. Nerve security takes him to the train station where he's waiting to board. Meanwhile, Misato has a very late realization.
The Hedgehog's Dilemma.
Tadaima.
Shit. Oh my god. The fuck am I even supposed to say about this?
So tying this back into the title of the video and the episode, the closeness between Shinji and Misato and the ensuing falling out is a classic case of the hedgehog's dilemma. At the beginning, he's left isolated and alone like the separated hedgehogs, coiling away from social interaction, refusing to talk to people, being angered by the sight of two people being affectionate, and physically separating himself from civilization. But does this separation help him at all? Does it fix any underlying issue? No, it does nothing except fuel his own desire to go back. And when he does, like the hedgehogs, he's reminded why he separated in the first place, suffering the same fate as he did before. But this time, it's a little bit different. By interacting with Toji and Kensuke, Shinji learns how foolish he was being. Shinji finally gets it, the answer to the hedgehog's dilemma. Rejection, emotional pain, these things are all a part of being human. See, Schopenhauer and Sigmund Freud, these guys were a bunch of cowards. They died as pessimistic men who were too scared to open themselves up to anyone. So instead of running away, for the first time in his life, Shinji accepts it. He accepts the pain. He stops running away from his problems, because he knows that won't work again. He knows that relationships bring pain, and it's unfortunate, and it sucks. But you know what? They also bring happiness. They bring joy, laughter, and comfort. And how could Shinji leave all that behind? So hopefully I've communicated why this is one of my favorite episodes of Evangelion. So next time someone says this episode is boring, give them a piece of your mind.
Maybe everybody else wants to enjoy the peace and quiet. Who are you? You miserable, presumptuous, no talent. You're no artist. An artist respects the silence. It serves as the foundation of creativity. And I'm an NYU film school graduate. Sucker! You suck! You're a no talent! You're everything that's gone wrong in this world! Mediocre piece of shit!
If you made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want, like if you can. Sorry if my audio quality was a bit weird. I'm recording on my phone in my closet. I don't have an actual microphone. Maybe eventually I'll invest in something better. End the video. End it now. End it now.